How does a woman openly confess to butchering her husband and her baby, yet have the highest judge in the land step in mid-trial to demand her immediate acquittal? In the Victorian era, a double murder confession almost guaranteed a swift walk to the gallows. But on a freezing January morning, 25-year-old Rebecca Law shattered the expectations of the British justice system. She didn't use a clever lawyer, and she didn't exploit a legal loophole. Instead, the blinding clarity of her own madness forced the court to do the unthinkable. If you enjoy true historical cases where the law itself becomes the real mystery, subscribe, because these stories only get stranger. In the next few minutes, you will see why the court protected the accused. Not because it condoned her horrific actions, but because the Lord Chief Justice feared what the justice system would become if it executed a mind already destroyed by its own devils. To understand how this nightmare began, we have to look at the isolated landscape of Starling Green, near Clavering, England. In the late 19th century, this was a world of crushing poverty, far removed from the wealthy, industrial expansion of Victorian London. For 25-year-old Rebecca Law, life in this remote corner of Essex was not just difficult, it was psychologically suffocating. Her husband, Samuel Law, was a local ratcatcher. In the social hierarchy of the time, a ratcatcher occupied one of the lowest, most desperate tiers of the working class, a profession dedicated to hunting pests in filth for meager wages. Worse still, the historical record describes Samuel as a dissolute man. He was volatile, unstable, and a drain on his family. Just weeks before the tragedy, Samuel had been sent to prison to serve a 1-month sentence, leaving his young wife entirely destitute. With no income and no safety net, a desperate Rebecca was forced to enter the local workhouse with her children. In Victorian England, the workhouse was designed to be a place of deliberate misery, a harsh, punishing institution meant to deter the poor from seeking state relief. For a young mother trying to care for a 6-year-old boy and a newborn infant, the shame, isolation, and psychological strain inside those stone walls were absolute. When Samuel was finally released from prison, Rebecca left the workhouse and returned with him to their remote cottage. But she was not the same woman who had entered it. The crushing weight of poverty, her husband's criminal instability, and the severe, unaddressed onset of postpartum depression had already begun to fracture her mind. By the time winter settled over Starling Green in January, the stage was set for a domestic catastrophe that would horrify the entire country. On the night of January 14th, the isolation of the Law cottage turned into a scene of absolute horror. There was no argument, no sudden outburst of domestic rage, and no warning. Instead, according to the historical records, the evening began with an eerie display of quiet, domestic piety. Rebecca and Samuel sat together inside their remote home, reading the Bible. But as the pages turned, something inside Rebecca's fractured mind completely snapped. The religious text did not bring her peace. It acted as the final catalyst for a profound psychiatric break. Without a word, Rebecca stood up and grabbed a billhook, a heavy, curved agricultural tool with a thick blade, traditionally used for cutting thick branches and brush. She turned on her husband, launching into a ferocious, unbridled assault. Samuel, caught completely off guard, stood no chance. The ferocity of the attack was staggering. He was subjected to over 100 deep cuts and slashes, with the blade systematically mutilating his face, neck, and shoulders. But the nightmare did not stop there. Rebecca then walked over to the cradle where her 16-week-old infant son, Alfred, lay sleeping. Using a heavy hammer, she struck the infant, ending his short life in an instant. The only other survivor in the house was her 6-year-old son. What followed next is perhaps the most haunting image of the entire tragedy. In the dead of night, in the small hours of the morning, Rebecca took the terrified 6-year-old by the hand. Her dress was completely soaked through with the blood of his father and his infant brother. Together, mother and child walked 3 miles through the pitch-black, freezing English countryside, leaving the butchered remains behind them in the dark. Just before dawn, a frantic knocking awoke Rebecca's mother at her home in the neighboring village of Langley. When she opened the door, she was astounded by the sight before her. There stood Rebecca, weeping, her clothes heavily stained with blood, holding her 6-year-old son by the hand. Rebecca did not try to hide what she had done, nor did she make excuses. She immediately confessed, telling her mother flatly that she had chopped up Samuel with a billhook and killed 16-week-old Alfred with a hammer. Local officials immediately launched an investigation. Constables traveled the 3 miles back to the remote, isolated cottage in Starling Green, where they found a scene that perfectly matched Rebecca's harrowing confession. Samuel Law's mutilated body lay exactly where she had left it, bearing the horrific marks of over 100 deep blade slashes, and the infant was found dead in his cradle. When authorities formally questioned Rebecca, her statements only grew more unsettling. She was not cold or remorseless. Instead, she was completely detached from reality, trapped within the narrative of her own mind. She claimed that as she was hitting Samuel, she could hear a distinct, chaotic noise echoing through the house. In her official statement, she averred, "All the time I was hitting him, there was a noise on the stairs. They kept on blundering up the stairs, I mean the devils, but I wasn't afraid." To the local police, this was an open and shut case of a double homicide with a full confession. Rebecca Law was bound over for trial, facing a mandatory sentence of death by hanging. But as the case moved toward the highest court in the region, the narrative began to shift from a simple crime into a profound legal crisis. When the trial of Rebecca Law opened, the courtroom was packed with onlookers expecting a straightforward, albeit gruesome, march to the gallows. Under Victorian law, a signed confession and a confirmed crime scene left virtually no room for defense. The prosecution prepared to lay out the bloody details of the billhook and the hammer. But the narrative shattered the moment the witness stand was occupied not by police constables, but by the caretakers of the state. The defense called upon the officials and the chaplain from the local workhouse, the very institution where Rebecca had sought refuge during her husband's time in prison. These witnesses had spent weeks observing Rebecca under conditions of extreme distress, and their testimony changed everything. They testified under oath that Rebecca was not a cold-blooded killer, but a woman suffering from a profound mental collapse. They described her as intensely melancholic and explicitly diagnosed her condition as religiomania, a Victorian psychiatric term used to describe severe delusional religious mania. The workhouse chaplain noted that her own statements about hearing devils blundering up the stairs were not calculated lies to escape the rope, but the terrifying reality of fractured mind. As this evidence unfolded, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted dramatically. The prosecution's case began to look less like a pursuit of justice and more like the state-sponsored execution of a helpless psychiatric patient. Sitting on the bench was the Lord Chief Justice, the highest judicial authority in the courtroom. He looked at the blood-soaked dress, listened to the chaplain's testimony, and reviewed Rebecca's delusion-filled statement. Before the prosecution could even finish presenting their case, the Lord Chief Justice did something that stunned the entire courtroom. He stood up, interrupted the proceedings, and brought the trial to a grinding halt. Addressing the jury directly, the Lord Chief Justice bypassed the standard legal procedures. He suggested that the jury might wish to acquit Rebecca Law immediately, without hearing any further arguments, witnesses, or proceedings. This was the invisible shield of the law in action. The judge wasn't acting out of mere sympathy or staging a dramatic exit. He was actively protecting the integrity of the justice system itself. In 19th century England, the law was unyielding. If a person was found guilty of a willful capital crime, the punishment was death. But the Lord Chief Justice recognized a deeper, more dangerous threat. If the system executed someone who was flags up, demonstrably detached from reality, the law itself would cease to be an instrument of justice and instead become a state-sponsored monster. By demanding an immediate acquittal, the court established a vital boundary. It proved that the law must have a mechanism to recognize a mind broken by profound psychological trauma, severe postpartum depression, and religious mania. The jury, following the judge's powerful directive, did not hesitate. Without retiring to deliberate, they instantly acquitted Rebecca Law of all charges. But this acquittal did not mean she was simply set free to walk the streets. The legal system had a very specific, permanent solution for individuals deemed a danger to society due to madness. The historical record notes that she was immediately and permanently removed to a criminal lunatic asylum. Her life was spared from the gallows, but she would spend the rest of her days behind the walls of an institution, trapped forever with the memory of the devils she thought she heard on the stairs. What do you think about the Lord Chief Justice's decision to stop the trial midway? Did the court make the right choice by intervening to save a self-confessed killer from the gallows? Or should the trial have been allowed to finish? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to explore more forgotten historical mysteries where the courtroom itself becomes the ultimate twist, hit that subscribe button.